So here's what's going on in the world on August 18th, 2020, according to Trax News. You got to read between the lines. There's headlines going on there, but there's so much more going on in the world that people just don't understand. That's why we're doing what we're doing. So let's start with this. At least 21 states plan to sue Postal Service over service delays. Threat to election. This vote by mail, the government cannot handle anything. You're supposed to be voting with an app on your phone. You got Face ID on your phone. You got all these things. And for some reason, you can't use it. You got to use the old mail system where you put it in a box. God knows what happens to it there. You don't know if your vote was counted. It's so stupid that you can't use your phone to vote and register right on your phone. It just shows you the level of incompetence in the United States government, right? U.S. Senate report goes beyond Mueller to lay bare Trump's campaign. Who the fuck, this Russia link shit? Let me tell you something. If you're believing that there's some Russia link still, you're lost in the sauce. I'll just be, that's my opinion. Our panel over here might have a different opinion, and we'll get to them in a second. But for me, all that Russia, then it was Ukraine, all that's all nonsense, bullshit, excuses for Hillary Clinton, and they're still trying to ramp it up. They're still trying to sell you that lie. If you're buying that lie, I feel sorry for you. I got to be honest. Washington Post, Portland attack, headline slammed as passive voice nonsense. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck that even means. I'm going to skip it because it seems like nonsense. At the DNC 2020, Bill Clinton to exacerbate Trump chaos storm center, shift the blame. Bill Clinton's going to show his face out there after all of his Epstein ties. That's strange. He's got something to say about somebody. I don't really, I personally don't want to hear it at this point. If you ask me, Bill Clinton seemed like such a good president when the economy was booming. He didn't have shit to do with that economy. That was just a bunch of printed money at a time when the U.S. was expanding and blowing up a bubble, which is now has to pay for. So all that Clinton's this, Obama's that. Again, more nonsense. You really have to understand what's really happening with these individual leaders, and you need some perspective on that. I don't have all the details, but I know it's bullshit. Former DHS official, Trump will align with dictators around the world if he wins. Okay, CNN, thank you for the heads up. He's going to align with yeah, he likes dictators. He likes to, be a bulldog and shit like that. Not the best person in the world, but you have the Supreme Court to rein him in, if anything. And if he was doing something real, the Supreme Court would have done something about it by now. It didn't. Notre Dame shifting to online classes, online. I don't know what the hell you're going to learn online, but that's what's happening in the world right now. Luke Doncic, I don't know who he is, became a Maverick. I guess so. Good for him. Man dies after being stuck in a water slide. This is a nightmare situation. The guy dies stuck in a water slide support tube. What kind of death is that? That's misery on top of misery. So this is what's happening in the world according to what it is. 7 states approved an extra $300 a week. States that have money. I wish I were able to look up what states those are. I know it's not New York, because according to something that's going on over here, New York is dead forever. New York Post writes. No, it's not. It's just waiting for this nonsense virus to go on, so all the rich kids and all these affluent people to come in here to be snooty and have a sweater tied around them, and and cool glasses from Oliver's People or something like that, to go and hike up the rent for real New Yorkers. That's just the way the city works. People want to be cool. They want to move in over here. And that's what's going on around the world. Mali's president is doing something in a military coup. Another nightmare somewhere. And Wuhan. This is a real interesting. Wuhan holds a huge concert pool after 3 months of no reported coronavirus cases. Congratulations, Wuhan. You had a crazy lockdown. And you did 3 months of no virus. You know what the hell is going on. You knew how to protect yourself from this thing. I wish we had this so I could take off this bullshit fucking mask. I mean, I could technically take it off because we filter the air over here, but it's a risk. Maybe it's a 2% risk, maybe it's a 5% risk, but it's a risk nonetheless. Let's start with the Wuhan pool party. What are you down for a Wuhan pool party, bro?
I think Wuhan's back on the map, you know. They have a lockdown. I guess their rates are pretty low, and they're sending a message to the world that, you know, I guess Wuhan, part of China, they're sending a message to the world, hey, we did this right. We locked down, and now we're better, and now we're opening back up. So I guess it's a PR. There's a part of it that's like a PR kind of campaign. So yeah, that's what I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, I mean, Wuhan, after pulling off this crazy, the things that came out of Wuhan, if you haven't seen the videos, I mean, I wish we could pull them up, but there was so much craziness going on in that city when the virus hit. They let the virus run loose, out of control. People were dying in their apartments, all sorts of nonsense. That's what really scared me over here for New York when the virus came. But we locked down a little earlier than them, so we didn't get the crazy brunt of that virus. But now they're back, and that is a sign of hope for the world with this thing. But the Chinese really locked it down. Here we have the virus lingering around all over the place. I can't wait for that big party. Veronica, any of the headlines, you know, hit you some type of way? Anything on your mind?
Yeah, related to, you know, the Wuhan thing. They were saying, like, you know, New York is dead, and you know, the photo they had was like an empty Times Square, and you know, we're in the heart of New York City even right now, and I don't think that New York is dead. I think that we're just kind of waiting, like, similarly, for all this stuff to blow over. I kind of went out this weekend for the first time in a while. I went to actually Washington Square Park with some friends, and you know, I wore my mask when I was out, but there were a lot of people not wearing masks, you know, partying around, skateboarding and stuff, and it was nice to have that energy. I know a lot of people have been upset being cooped up, and you know, that's allowed New Yorkers to have like a lower rate, right, or New York to have a lower rate. And even like I went out to Brooklyn on Sunday and went to the park, also same thing, a lot of people outside, still kind of you know, still social distanced. So I think there's ways for us to still go out and enjoy ourselves, but I don't think that New York is dead. I think it's just, you got to find the right places to party and be safe.
I've been in New York at the peak of traffic, bumper to bumper. You can't even think of trying to drive anywhere at 3 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m. even. You're bumper to bumper. It takes you hours to get someplace. Everything is packed and teeming. It's a fun city if you're on foot or on a bicycle, but in a car, it's impossible. I'm not begrudging this emptiness, so-called, because now I could drive to work without going through hell. I don't have to ride my motorcycle like I usually do in the summer times to the Diamond District, simply because you have some breathing room, right? It's not 18-wheelers blowing exhaust. It was a nightmare. So that was a virus in and of itself. I'm not looking forward to New York booming out of control like it was under Bloomberg. Tickets every 10 feet. And all sorts of nonsense. New York is, to me, for New Yorkers. And what is a New Yorker? Well, you have to live here for 10 years, 15 years to call yourself a real New Yorker, to me, personally. But that's just my opinion. I'm not really worried about that aspect of it. New York is not going anywhere. People still want to be a part of it. All the violence and the looting and the madness, just like in the 80s with the crack epidemic, that made this city an adventure for people to come here. The crazy graffiti and things like that. It's a city that's constantly evolving ever since the Dutch settled here. So, you know, it's going to continue on. It's a bullshit headline. Monica, any thoughts on whatever the headlines are?
I think this virus actually exposed something to everybody, is that you don't have to necessarily live in big cities, and that's why there's exodus. It happens every 30 to 40 years. Like, people live big cities, they move to suburbia, and then they move back. And I feel like at this point, what people realize is that it's too expensive to live in New York in the first place. Secondly, if you are able to work from home, then you don't have to pay for like $4,000 or $5,000 closet in Manhattan, which most people do right now. And thirdly, it's also it showed people that, like, when pandemics come, for example, right, living in a big city in a very in an environment where everybody's very close to each other, you use public transportations all the time, you go to restaurants, is not the best thing. And also, like, New York is famous for its restaurant industry, for its club industry, right? That's why people come here, because it's fun. It's a city that never sleeps. Once you take that away and people don't have restaurants to go to, people don't have clubs to go to, there's bodegas are not open as for as long as they usually are, then is there a really point to pay that much in rent? So I get why people are moving out.
Rooney?
I mean, honestly, no one is talking about this, but that Taylor Swift has a point, and I usually am not a big Taylor Swift fan, but it's smart to try to tell your voters, or not your voters, but try to tell your fans that there are alternative ways to make your voice heard, because it does seem that, unfortunately, we have people in power that want to steal our election and, like, maybe retain their power unfairly and unconstitutionally. So I think it's very socially responsible and a very smart move on her part to speak out against this. As for is New York dead, I mean, everyone and their mother is saying no, it's not. I think that's just like a great headline. It's something people want to push maybe to make sure rent stays down. But I think everyone that's here, everyone that loves the city knows New York is not going anywhere.
So Boris, you want to say something?
Yeah, since we're switching a little topic onto the onto the sort of postal issue and stuff, and what Taylor Swift said, encouraging people to vote early. So the context of that is the fact that earlier in the year, Donald Trump actually refused to fund the Postal Service. So then what ended up happening is the Postal Service ended up cutting a lot of hours, cutting a lot of workers, cutting a lot of the, I think, certain types of machines that process mail and stuff like that. And then whoop, coronavirus happened. And, suddenly we have a big influx of a need to hold a fair election with mail-in ballots, and there's less workers, there's less machinery, there's less hours that are being worked, and it's creating an issue. That's sort of, I guess, the context that I would, me personally, that's the context that I would bring. Maybe somebody else would have a different kind of take on it, but that's how
Well, listen, when it comes to the post office, for me, just relying on this arcane technology to deliver pieces of paper around in a digital age shows you the incompetence of the government, which is the real headline for the 18th of August, is the incompetence of the world to understand what it could do when it comes to democracy and voting with the internet. The internet is not supposed to be just for cat videos and nonsense. You should be able to use it for democracy. You're interlinking everybody. Ultimately, you don't even need a House of Representatives. You don't need to be represented. You could represent yourself. It's not the 1800s when you had to get on or the 1776 when you had to get on a horse and go to DC to make your voice heard. You could do that in a millisecond on a digital network, but that's the bottom line. You're surrounded by fraud. You're surrounded by lies, and you have to stand up for yourself. And if Taylor Swift wanted to say something, if all these people wanted to say something, they should have said something with post office. I mean, they could say whatever the hell they want, but that's what I'm saying. Post office. What are we talking about? Talking about the post office now? We got to mail in a ballot. There's no system, no app that we could make that scans your ID, put in your social security, register to vote, and get things done. It's terrible, but the people just don't have the sense. Celebrities chiming in, this, that, the ideas that they have, everybody has. In my opinion, the whole United States as a civilization is in some sort of state of decline where it cannot take these leaps forward. They don't have that spirit. It's like a dog chasing its tail. Like, what are we talking about? But that's just the way of it. So many things going on in the world that should be addressed. But, for me, the other big story that you don't even see on the headline is when it comes to money, they don't teach you anything in school, and they don't tell you anything on the news. You have the dollar and a serious crisis on our hands economically, but again, not addressed. A civilization in decline is my final word. Anybody want to take the final word on the overall thing of what's going on this week in August?
I would actually like to discuss mail-in ballots because I agree with part of what you guys were saying, but I also think that it's, like with the whole thing that Republicans are stealing the mailboxes. Democrats tend to make a good point and then go too far in conspiratorial way, like, oh, there was some Russian interference, but the Russians didn't steal election. So there has to be some balance in the way Democrats address the main voters, because once you go too far, nobody's going to take you seriously. Trump is a bad guy, but is he really a fascist? Like, you know, just like find the messaging that actually, you know, gets to the average voter, and that doesn't make them think those guys are absolutely fucking nuts.
Well, I mean, we're to hit back on you a little bit. We're sort of, is it wrong for us to use the Republican playbook in the sense that the Tea Party came the Tea Party came around calling and Trump, one of his main things was that Obama wasn't born in this country. So, you know, so we're using sort of the same kind of playbook, because to us, if that side does it, you know, and they won the presidential election, you know, to a certain degree, not everybody in the Democratic Party, this is not like everybody in the Democratic Party is the same, but some people say, you know what, we're going to say that Trump is a fascist. We're going to say that he is, you know, exercising the type of cult of personality around him that a fascist would take, and he would take some kind of positions like that. So although I agree with you, that might be extreme, but is it as extreme or more extreme than what the Republicans have done?
People that there's a fascist in the White House, which is what Democrats are saying,
as
opposed to an incompetent president who doesn't know what he's saying, then it means that it's the people's duty to take up arms and remove the fascists in the government. Isn't that what that entails? So
Well,
it's a dangerous messaging in itself. It's a dangerous messaging in itself, and not a correct one. Not a correct one. You can say that he's incompetent. You can say that he does. Who Trump?
Yeah, no, Obama.
Yeah, I'm talking about the orange man in the office.
Who
but
said that Obama wasn't born in this country?
I don't approve of that messaging.
Yeah.
Me criticizing the way Democrats address their voters is not me endorsing Trump or anybody else. Is me wanting I want a better messaging. I want a messaging that makes sense. But if you tell an average voter, an average person who lives in this country, that there is a fascist in the White House, what that messaging entails is that it's up to every citizen of this country to take up arms to remove that
I
fascism.
wouldn't go that far. I would say it's up to every citizen in this country to get him out of office. Not necessarily it's up to every
But you
citizen to pick up arms
can't
to get
vote
them
the
out.
fascists out.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of fascism.
You can
so you
protest
create
them
that environment where people are afraid, and that he's not a fascist.
Did you
He's
hear-
incompetent.
Let me ask you, did you hear what Trump just recently said? He recently said that he might have a third term. Why? Because his first term was illegally investigated upon. So because the Obama administration illegally investigated Trump's campaign when he was running for president for the first term, he said that he should be able to have a third term.
You know it's not going to happen. You know it's not going to happen.
He
First
said
of all,
it.
we have check and balances in this country, and I lived under actual dictators. I know what it's like, and don't tell me that First of all, an actual dictator would get anything that he wants done. He can't, because there's Supreme Court and there's check and balances in this country. Nobody listens to him. He can't get anything done. He's incompetent. But saying that he's fascist is so irresponsible, and it actually diminishes the experience of people who live under actual fascism and are under actual dictators around the world. And I think it's a very irresponsible messaging, and it needs to stop.
Okay, well, listen, you heard the opinions. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love for you to join the organization. If you're in the New York area, hit us up. You could come down, voice your opinion, voice it in the comments, do the thing where we're building this news organization, and you can get shares of it. So looking forward to all of that, and we appreciate you watching, and looking forward to reading your comments.